Well, tubers, welcome back to the Zach Life. As always, I'm not ever smart enough to do the intro at the first of the video, and so we're actually in the middle of the day and I'm shooting the video. Anyway, I got a sort of interesting, just a bunch of buried crap I'm going to be doing the next couple of days. We're supposed to get some rain. This is the day after Memorial Day, Tuesday, and we're supposed to get some rain Thursday. I got a couple of days to try to get some stuff knocked out, and that's what I'm going to do. Let's get after it. So the first job of the day is I've got to finish pouring the babbitt in one of these bridles. Now I have already shown in detail pouring the babbitt in a bridle before. If you'd like to watch that, you can go do it. I'm going to do this very quickly. It's going to be a time lapse. There won't be much discussion about it, but I got to get this knocked out. Alright, I hope I got enough babbitt. I may not. I'm going to say that's about as perfect amount as you can get. I'm going to let this solidify. I'm going to grab both of them. We're going to jump in the winch truck because it's supposed to be 105 today and the winch truck didn't have an air conditioner. I need to do a little road work in here. Golly. Alright, sorry about the wind. There's nothing I can do about it. It blows 40 miles an hour every day around here, it seems like. But anyway, here's the first one. Most of these heads, this bridle just sort of clips around a deal. It looks not unlike this. This one, unfortunately, has got 3 bolts in it. Not my favorite kind here. Okay, so if we get really lucky, when we roll this through, it'll straighten all this stuff out. But another problem we got here is this is a polish rod liner. This is what seals in the packing. And when this thing fell, it must have drove it up, because this is about roughly where the top of the stroke will be. And it's all the way out of the stuffing box. You can see it was right in here. You know, the end of the packing, this used to be about here. So we got to loosen these bolts and see if we can get this thing to move. This is difficult to do without a well service rig. Maybe I use that little winch to do something. Alright, let's see if this unwinds. throttle to do. I just hadn't got it in me. 100 degrees I can deal with. And driving around one of these trucks with an engine blowing hot air on you, creeping around with these leases with no air, it's just about to kill me. Anyway, I'm gonna go try to get that other unit set before I have a heat stroke. And worry about this throttle maybe tomorrow or next week. This thing's significantly bigger than I remember. I may not be able to pick it up. I think what I'll probably do is just wrap a chain around the tailboard and we'll see if we can just drag it over there. It's only about a mile across the pasture. Alright, my battery died during that. I hope he got enough of it. I hope he got the tractor pull apart. So anyway, the whole deal is to get under the power lines, I gotta have my poles laid pretty much all the way back. And with them laid all the way back, the truck's too short to be able to pick up much. If I try to pick this up, it'll just pick the front tires of the truck up off the ground. And so what I'm gonna do, my plan is take the unit, I'm gonna back up to the side here, stand my poles pretty much straight up. I'm gonna drive forward out here and then back it in on that side of the well. There's the well, by the way. Have it sort of out that direction. You come in, the road's out there, so when you have to work on it, you can back the rig in right here. I think I'll actually put you on the well. gonna go home and get something in the bucket truck, something with an air conditioner, and grab me some lunch. It's 2 o'clock, I'm starving. All right, I think I got everything we need. Had to put some power steering fluid in this thing. Finally something with air conditioner. I just pulled up out here. So I need to give you a little bit of context about what we're doing. I'm kind of in a rush to do it. Not really, but sort of. And I'd like to kind of tell you why and give you some regulations on, you know, what we're required to do and not. If you're not interested in hearing me rattle for several minutes, you skip forward to, and that's where we're going to actually go back to work. So anyway, this well is, let me back up. The commission has got a regulation that limits operators' ability to have dormant wells, and the commission calls these inactive wells, inactive producers. And what the regulation states is that every well in the state of Texas has got to produce 5 barrels per month for 3 consecutive months every calendar year, or the well is considered inactive. When a well becomes inactive, it goes on a schedule. They call it a schedule, an inactive schedule. So an operator that has got an inactive schedule has got to either plug or get operating 10% of his inactive wells per calendar year. And if he doesn't do this, they won't renew your license to operate in the state of Texas. And so once a year you file a piece of paper that gives the status of the well, if it's an injection well, if it's a producer, if it's no production, if it's shut in, if it's a, you know, whatever. Tells it what the status of the well, how much water and how much oil and how much gas the well makes. So this well back over here, this would have been a year ago at the first of the year. It was still pumping, showed it is producing. And anyway, a short time later, we had a windstorm come through here and blew the electric poles over. And the well wasn't really any good, and we just decided it's not worth spending the money on, we're just gonna plug the well. So anyway, the well sits there, just like you saw it earlier, more or less. I actually robbed the unit off of it for about eight or 9 months. And the Railroad Commission comes through here and does an inspection, and the well is showed as producing, but is not capable of producing. It doesn't have a unit on it. And, you know, makes the commissioners mad. And talked to the Boston office, and then just explained to him, I said, you know, when we filed the paper, it was producing. Electric pole blew over everything, we're going to plug it. Okay, you know, he's okay, sounds good, no problem. And so anyway, we file an update showing that the well is shut in. So anyway, we go getting ready to plug it, digging through some records, and the well shows, the old record is drilled in the 60s, that it's got a lower gun sight, 1,620 or 30 feet, something like that. It was open hole, and it made a bunch of gas with an oil mist when they originally drilled it. And the lower gun sight around here doesn't show up much, but it will pop up. And I'm calling gun sight is just a name. It's a nickname of a formation, 1,600 feet. The lower gun sight pops up around here, and usually when it's good, it comes in and it's really good. It makes a really good well, but it doesn't last very long. So anyway, I'm thinking, you know, maybe we ought to go down there and try this lower gun sight. You know, they just made a bunch of gas, didn't make much oil. They set a bridge plug. The guy that originally drilled it was interested in you know, striking rich. He wasn't interested in a well that made a barrel or two. And so I'm thinking we need to go down there and try this lower gun sight. The problem is we showed this thing shut in last September, something like that, and it's fixing to pop up. It may be already popped up as an inactive well on our schedule. Now this isn't a problem, and it won't be a problem until next January when we renew our license to operate production in the state of Texas. And they won't renew it unless we have plugged that well, because it's going to be considered inactive, and that'll be one, you know, that one well will be 10% of our total wells, which we've only got one. So anyway, I'm only get some time crunch because I want to get this thing running. I want to pump it for a month or two, see if it makes anything, and then if it doesn't make anything, then I've got the rest of the year to get it plugged before January 1st, and if it rains in the fall and whatnot, that can kind of become a problem. Most operators have usually got quite a few inactive wells, and they just plug however many number the commission makes them plug that year, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, and it's not really ever a problem. Well, we don't do that. We just, for the most part, pump a well till we decide it's not worth pumping anymore, and then just immediately go plug it, or within a few months. We don't let them stack up and make the commission decide for us which ones we got to plug. Anyway, it's funny because that regulation to us is kind of more of a pain to deal with than an operator that's got a whole bunch of shut-in wells and we don't have any. So the other thing is we cut the flow line up and use the flow line that went to the tank batteries elsewhere, but it runs out here a little ways, and I'm going to be able to cut it and drag it back and splice it into this well that's right in front of us. I'm going to be able to run electric wire across the pasture. I'll show you in a minute. It used to have electric poles that came way across the pasture, I don't know, a quarter of a mile or longer, when there was power just 300 feet away. I don't know why they did that. And that's what broke. That's what started all this. And we're just going to lay wire on the ground over here to pump this thing. Probably after I pump it for a week or two, I'll know whether or not I'm going to keep it. But I might want to keep it, pump it a couple of months if it looks like it might get better. Anyway, let's pull over here and do some poly welding. Okay, so this is the well we're going to tie into. The one we set the unit on is right across the road, not that one, but right there. The flow line comes up here and is cut, swings around the front, swings around here. This is the one that goes to the well we just set the unit on. We're going to cut this one right here and splice these together, and then this line runs up to the tank batteries. Alright, this deal here is called a poly squeezer. You can buy these commercially. Mine is homemade, obviously. What we're going to do is use this to pinch the poly pipe off, so we don't have, because I don't have a valve anymore here, and we don't want all the fluid that's in this line to come blowing back out at us. So I'm going to pinch it off. right, it's been about 2 or 3 minutes. Hopefully this is cooled off enough. It's still pretty hot. Okay, so here is a spool of wire. I'm going to take and pull this thing. I'm not actually sure I can. I'm going to try to pull it to that pole over there. It ought to be just about 100 yards. So there's the old pole that broke, and like I said, I don't know why this was. There's about 5 spans that went right out there. I don't know if you can see that pole. It's wide out there. It went straight to it. It's a pretty long way. That well is much older than this well. I don't know why they didn't just run power to it, but nonetheless. So I'm about out of camera battery. I'm gonna put you down. I'm gonna see if I can get the wire drug over there, and then I'll turn it back on. We'll go try to hook it up. So I got the motor sort of wired up. This is really sketchy, but I'm gonna see if it'll run just like it is. I'll bring some heat shrink out here and go back over these wires. Anyway, I pulled this cover off. There was a rat living in here, and he's ate the insulation off several of these wires. I've looked it over. There's nothing touching. It should be fine just like it is. I'm gonna go see if this thing will run, and I'll bring some heat shrink back out here, slide heat shrink up over each wire and heat shrink it, and we should be good to go. So the wire just runs up here from that well's right back over there, runs up here to this pole. This box runs this well. I'm just going to hook the wires in it, so when I turn this switch on, it turns both these wells on. Like I say, this is extremely temporary, but I'm going to do that real quick. So I hate rigging stuff up like this. I wouldn't do anything like this if it was, you know, somebody lived down here or something. This is just a big piece of ranch land. There's actually no cows out here. They come and got all the cows. I don't know why. I'm not a rancher. I don't know anything about that. But anyway, the guy that owns it's easy to get along with. There's nobody out here, no animals out here that ought to come up here and touch this or lick it. There shouldn't be anybody at all out here. And so I'm going to leave this, you know, I'm not worried about it today. I'm going to come back and make the motor a little bit more savvy tomorrow. But I just want to make the point, you know, this is pretty sketchy, and it isn't something I normally would do, especially if it was somewhere someone lived or something. All right, so it's been running about, I don't know, 5 minutes, maybe 6 or 8 minutes, not long. And you might not be able to see it, but I can already feel a fluid pound right there. It's only hitting about 4 inches or so. This is not a good indication. This has already got a small pump in it. The amount of fluid it's pumping is extremely small, probably less than a couple of barrels a day. If it's pure oil, you know, a couple of barrels would be all right. But around here, doesn't know how that works. I would expect it to be 10% oil at the most. And so 1 or 2 barrels, 10% is not very much. Nonetheless, I've got to go do a few more things. I need to get a check valve. You're supposed to have a check valve in your line here. It's actually a violation if you don't. I can probably get by with that for a few days, but this valve doesn't work. I just screwed it off and I can hear it blow. I don't know if you heard that. It is definitely lifting fluid, but it isn't very much. It's possible it's gas locked, which means that there's gas pressure down there holding the fluid back, and this is actually pumping a full stroke, but the top part is gas and only the bottom is liquid. We don't really know, but anyway, I'm gonna go back to town and get a 1/8 bleeder valve. We'll let this run for an hour, and I'm gonna get my F-150 and get out of this this turd, and then we'll come back out here and take a look at it. I'm gonna go put a valve on this thing real quick, and then I'm gonna go eat supper, and then we're gonna come back out here, and I'll show you at any point that this becomes interesting. I'll shoot a segment of it. Well, it's 10 o'clock. The thing's hitting a full barrel and making clear water. I hadn't gotten much hope for this thing, but a few days will probably tell. Anyway, we'll take a look at it in the morning and see what it looks like. Alright, so we actually got a pretty good rain shower last night. This is, let's see, what time is it? Almost 3 o'clock. Only thing I got to do today is go put this bridle on and make a couple of connections up. We're going to try to get another well. The first one I didn't do yesterday because it was too hot. We're going to try to see if we can make it run today. Shouldn't take much. So I went out to that well last night. It was still making water. This morning it had a little bit of oil on it. It looked like it might make a decent well. We're going to go take a look at it this afternoon and see if it looks any different. All right, first job is we got to put this piece of poly on that KC. So this is a header. There's tank batteries that go that way. There's two wells. There's a well out there, and then this line goes to the well we put the bridle on yesterday morning. There is a well, I don't know if we'll be able to see it. It's right across that wheat field somewhere. I can't spot it. But anyway, we've got to make this poly line's going to it. We got to make this connection, and then it runs up there to about where that old junk unit is. We've got to cut and splice into pieces buried across the wheat field of the unit. Anyway, this header here, it's fixed to be fire ant heaven here. Hate them stupid little suckers. Golly, look at them things. Hang on. I don't want to burn the pasture down, but I sure would like to slow them down a little. Anyway, these KCs I buy are not actually for polypipe. They're a little bit larger. They're about 2 inches in diameter, and the idea of polypipe is about 1.9, and so they're hard to get on. So what you've got to do is take the poly with a little propane torch and slowly warm it up till you get it soft and malleable, and then you can work it up on there, and it sort of swedges it up on that on the KC. Like I say, this is a line that goes to tank batteries. These two are going to wells either side of here, and then this one's the one that's going to cross the pasture. It's got a check valve in it. There it goes. I couldn't have got a normal size crescent. I had to get to 18. The problem with having a winch truck and a bucket truck and 2 pickups is you can have 4 of every single tool that exists, and somehow or another 2 of them will end up in one vehicle, and you won't have it in the one you need every time. So I don't ever have enough tools in anything. Okay, so we were right down about where that pole was. This line runs up to here and it's cut off right there. So what we got going here, there's an old injection well. This used to be his water system for this lease. He had a separator and tank set up out here. It's a half a mile from where we were standing at that fence to any road. It's a long way to get in here, to get trucks in here to sell oil. And so what we did was move the tanks and the separator about a half a mile that way to where they're in line with that other lease. You know, they're just next to each other. Makes everything better. Anyway, this was his injection well he used, and his pump and the water tank. And the injection well, I can't get it to take any water. I'm just going to plug it. We're going to be done with it. We'll move this tank and the water pump, clean all this up, get all this junk out of here and haul it off, and make this look like nothing was ever here, more or less. You can tell there's been oil leaks and everything else dumped on the ground. That's what that is. It's kind of dried up oily dirt. But anyway, that's why we're moving all this stuff around. So the well, can you see the well? It's right over my truck, right over the poles. It's got a poly line. It's buried across the pasture. and pops up right here. Now it's this old orange poly, and this stuff's got a bad rap for a good reason. And if it's left out in the sun like this, you know, this couple of decades or 3 or 4, it becomes rotten and it'll break. And probably if you bent this over here, it would actually break. Now in the oil field, the orange is synonymous with being old, and it is, because I hadn't sold orange for the oil field since probably the 80s. So this piece of pipe is probably 40 years old, but you can still buy it new. It comes in orange and blue and yellow and all the different colors, and is often used by the municipal water systems and gas and whatnot. Usually yellow is gas, and I don't remember what they are in line, but anyway, if you keep it buried and out of the sun, it lasts a long time. It's as good as the black. The problem is you can't have it laying on top of the ground. And anyway, with this being buried across this wheat field, we don't have to be concerned really with it being orange. But if there was a piece of orange that was, you know, 40 years old running through a pasture somewhere, I wouldn't use it. I would replace it. Here's a KC splicer. And this is left-hand thread on one side, right on the other. And you can slide it in here, screw it in, then we'll just put 2 clamps on it. I'll probably dig a little hole here and bury that just so that orange stays underground. Like I say, I think it should be perfectly fine. Okay, here is a, we worded this right. See the water tank right there? That flow line just runs right across the wheat field and pops up right there. I need a poly clamp there too. So this is a more typical head. You can see the bridle just sort of clips in a little thing up there. It actually looks like it's supposed to have a couple of diaper pins in it up there. Anyway, might actually be able to put this bridle on from down here on the ground. All right, so I'm just going to let this, we're just going to run a time lapse here. I'm just going to kind of let you watch my struggles here. This went on for about 45 minutes. Anyway, I kind of got screwed here. I had a well service company come run all this stuff in for me about, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, last fall. And first off, what they should have done is they should have put a couple rod subs, or, you know, 2-foot or 4-foot rod sub in here to raise the polish rod up so that when the pump tags bottom, it's not completely in the well. You know, normally this will be a couple of feet up in the air. So what they, even if they hadn't done that, what they should have done is pick the polish rod up a little bit out of the liner, tighten the bolts down in the liner so that there was enough sticking up there that you could have got a chain or something around to pick it up. Now anyway, you know, my problem here is that there's no space between the polish rod clamp and the liner, so there wasn't any way to separate them. They're stuck together, and I end up having to, you know, slide the clamp sort of halfway off the polish rod, and then use my other winch and tie it back down to the liner. End up sort of picking the tubing up, and anyway, just not a great deal. It could have been done a lot better, and it would have saved me a bunch of headache. But anyway, I'm just going to let the time lapse run, and you can watch me fight this thing. Okay, they should have left it sitting more like that to make it easier for me to work with. So I know for those of you that are savvy in the oil field, you're going to be saying, well, it's that far on bottom, it's not going to pump. The pump's going to come unseated. Well, I ran all this crap in here, and it was a stroke through pump with a stroke out nipple, and so I should have quite a bit of stroke. Now, I'm hoping it was sitting on bottom where it was, and I could reach out and touch bottom with it. If not, we'll have to have a rig come over here and put a sub in, because the the pump's going to be too far off bottom. Add a small rod, like a 2-foot rod sub or 4. They should have done that anyway. There wasn't any reason to leave this sitting that close to the red head. I'm just a little aggravated. Just kind of screwed up deal. You pay people to do something and they just kind of halfway it. We'll roll it through and see what happens. Well, I don't feel it blowing. That's not a good sign. I don't know, honestly, it feels like it's pumping. Not getting any flow. It's trying to stick up. Well, that all went downhill. So more than likely it's got some trash down there in the pump or something. Who knows what. I ran this in about 6 months ago, 8 months ago, and just now turned it on. And that's how the oil field goes. Anyway, I had to get a rig over here, pull it all back out. It could be the tubule's too close to bottom. It could be that there's trash in the bottom of the well that the pump picked up. Could be a lot of things. Sometimes they just stick up. But it didn't act like it was pumping either. So, if it pumped a few strokes and then stuck up, I might think we could just jar it loose, but it's probably got trash in the bottom of the well or something. Anyway, let's go check on the other one. All right, so here we are. This is 5 o'clock. It's been 24 hours, 25 hours, just about exactly. So this morning this thing looked pretty oily. It looks even better now. It's still making a lot of gas. I still don't have a check valve. Is this making you dizzy yet? So here's a sample I caught of it. It looks to me like maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4%. It's got a significant amount of oil on it. Now, is 4% oil gonna make you rich? No. There's wells around here that make less than that are still profitable. But it's much better. Let me say the well's better than I expected to ever get out of it. One thing to consider is this formation that we're pumping, the well, so to speak, is effectively new. It was drilled in the 60s, like 68 or something. They open-holed it in that lower gun sight, and you know the records, all he said was, I think it says a huge inrush of gas with oil mist. Cuttings were from the bottom to the top of the, from the bottom of the well to the surface in 10 seconds. It's a huge volume of gas. And anyway, they just jacked with it there for a few hours, and that evening they dumped a load of salt water down the casing. The hydrostate pressure holds everything back. They run a bridge plug in it the next morning, and we're done with it. It was only open for a few hours in the 60s, and then it was sealed back off. So it's effectively, the formation is effectively brand new. The well's effectively new as far as the formation goes. Anyway, if you dug this well and you had a 3 or 4% oil cut, it's making probably 25 barrels of water, maybe 30. It's making more water than I expected. What would that be? So if it makes 30 barrels and it's 3%, that'd be almost a barrel. It's probably making about a barrel a day, more or less. Anyway, if you dug a new well and it come in a barrel a day, you wouldn't be very happy with it. I mean, that happens. For me, if I've got an old well that's that's 40 years old, that's been pumping for 40 years, it still makes a barrel. To me, that's a good well. You don't get rich, but that's a well that makes barrel wells make our living, I guess is what I should say. Now, back to what I'm talking about, this thing being a new well. This thing's probably not going to last very long like this. It's probably going to taper down. It's probably going to get worse, not better, because this is its flush production. It's as good as it gets. It's new, whatnot, and I don't expect this to last very long. But it's making a barrel a day. If it'll make a barrel a day for 6 months, and I don't have to do anything, I'm gonna have to work on the electrical a little bit, but do a few things. With today's oil prices, it's going to make, 7 or 8 or 9 or 10,000 bucks. And that $10,000 will pay for plugging this thing, for the work I did for it, pay me for a couple of days of jacking with it, for the electric wire, having to get a rig on it and work on it. It'll be a wash at the end of the whole deal. And that's a lot better scenario than a $5,000 expense with nothing in return by plugging it. And you never know, it may last indefinitely, the barrel. There's a bunch of wells right around here, one right behind me, there's one right there. Their upper gun sites are 40 feet shallower than this, but they all make about a barrel, and they have for decades. And if we get a barrel well that lasts for a few years, it's going to be a home run. Now, that being said, there's quite a bit left to do. I got to put a check on it and everything, but it is 5 o'clock, and I'm gonna call this video. I appreciate you watching. We'll probably be back. I'll give you an update at some point in the future, but I just thought you'd like to come along. The other well we're gonna have to get a rig on. I've got one more well that's like these two. Anyway, it doesn't have electricity anywhere near it, and I think what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of Fairbanks Morse gas engines, and I'm going to get one of those running and set on that little well. It's not that far from the tank batteries. It won't take a lot of flow line, but the electricity is like half a mile away. It costs a fortune to run it. And anyway, the guy I bought the lease from told me that years ago it used to make a barrel. And you know, he's had it shut in all these years and it's inactive now, and I've got to have something done with it since I've taken it over by the 1st. And if it make a barrel, I'll spend the money to run electricity to it. If it doesn't look like it's going to, it's going to take a barrel to make it worth it. If it's going to be marginal, it's going to get plugged. Anyway, I'm done rattling. Appreciate you watching. I know it's been long, but we will catch you on the next one.